There's lots of millionaires that I would have no interest in helping. You call it humility, I call it honesty, Brian. He's got the union lawyer down my throat. He's got a private lawyer telling him he's going to sue me. Unprepared at the most important moment in my life at that point.
Hey everybody, Brian Hogman here, host of the Brick House podcast, where our goal here is to elevate you emotionally with your mindset and financially, and hopefully remind you of a bunch of skills that you probably already have. Today, super grateful to have a very good friend of mine. Got to know him really well over the past couple of years. Rob McCrae, financial advisor extraordinaire, built financial teams, a financial wizard in my eyes, my friend. Written a book, Money 2.0, as well too. Great book. I was rereading it again this weekend. And also a real authentic coach. You know what? We've been fortunate enough to have some of your training as well too at the brokerage at Mission 35. Really resonated with me, really resonated with the team. So I was really excited to have you on the show here and share a lot of that knowledge.
Hey, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
The first thing I would like to say is I'd like to, sincerely compliment you and commend you for being open to coaching. I dropped into your life. As you know, my daughter was a client of your business, and some things happened in that process that I just picked up the phone and called you.
Yeah.
Like some grumpy old uncle. You'd never met me, you didn't know me, and you were open to a conversation where I thought I could provide some feedback to help you be more successful. So you were open to the feedback, number one, but more importantly, number two, you took action. And you implemented some of the feedback and shared with me that I think it was March of last year, you had your best month ever, I think is something you told me when you implemented a process that I taught you. So kudos to you for being open, number one, and number two, implementing.
Oh, thanks, Rob. You know what? Honestly, for anybody listening out there, it's probably the number one thing, right? Like you can't get better if you don't listen. I think if someone told me once feedback is like a coat. You can put it on, see if it fits. And if it does, wear it. If it doesn't, don't wear it, right? But I remember the feedback you gave me. I was like, this guy is right.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff.
I want to start with your background too. You're a great family man as well too. Loving husband, great father. You didn't wake up and want to be a financial planner. You had a whole other life before that. So, and I always find it very fascinating with people that change, right? Because a lot of times people get set in a certain trajectory in life and never change, but you made a big change. So you want to talk about that?
For sure, yeah. Like my family business was teaching.
Yeah.
My dad was a high school teacher. When I was in grade 5, my mom went back to Mohawk College, your alma mater, took a 2-year early childhood education diploma and became a nursery school teacher. So for me, teaching was it. I loved school. Like I was that kid that, I lived literally right across the road from the back door to the school, the tech wing door at Westmount High School. Took me 20 seconds to get into school. So back then school would start at 8:45. I'd be there at 7:00.
Oh, wow.
I'd go over there. I'd shoot baskets in the morning. We had this teacher, Mr. Cook. He would hold court. He was the football coach. We'd stand at kind of the entrance of the school, and whatever sport was in season, when the players would go by, they'd just take a beating from this guy because he'd be critiquing their play and what they didn't do well. And, football season, well, he was the coach, so he was pretty tight with that one. Basketball season, spring, track and field, soccer, didn't matter. So I loved school, never missed a day of school. And I was always going to be a teacher.
That was the plan then, right? Like just from that young age, like I was going to be a teacher. And you did.
So I accomplished that goal at the ripe old age of 22. I was a high school teacher. And
that's young to be a teacher. Good for you. Yeah, 22 years old.
So I was quick, 3-year degree, year at teacher's college, and then right into teaching. And, that's what I was going to be. It would have been, 30-year career, retire at, early 50s. And that was kind of the story that I would have written. But what happened was, it was 1987 when I had that teaching job, and I'll never forget, in the interview, I told them I was here for 1 year and I was going to give them the best year that they could imagine, because I was going back to university to do a master's of education to then become, that was the quick way to become a principal. And my goal was to have a great high school, a sports school, dominate. That's what I was going to do. My product was going to be, students. That was the mentality I had. And back then, you had 1 day a year that you could resign from teaching. It was May 15th. And that was it. You had 1 day a year, and if you didn't adhere to that policy, they would blackball you in education. So May 15th came, and you had to either, I'm coming back next year or I'm resigning. No, I know.
1 day like that.
It's crazy, right? Like that's 1987. So it's
wow.
30 some odd, 40 years ago almost.
Right.
So
still, wow.
So the principal
don't be hungover that day.
What's that?
Don't be sleeping in that day.
No, yeah, don't miss it, right?
Yeah.
So the principal came and saw me at the start of May and said, Rob, I know you said you were here for a year. What would it take to keep you? Now, if I backtrack, I was teaching at West Elgin Secondary School, an agricultural community halfway between London and Chatham. It was not, I'm a kid from the Hammer, right? That is not where I aspired to live my life. But first of all, teaching jobs in 87 were hard to come by, right? So I had one. I was a full-time teacher, half phys ed, half math. Jerry Prince, my principal, great principal. Like, this guy was fabulous. Brian Mulrooney was Prime Minister of Canada in 1987. He was a staunch conservative, a supporter of the party. Brian Mulrooney came to our school and spoke to our kids. It was fabulous. Wow. Yeah, it was great. So Jerry said, what's going to take to keep you? And I said, well, if I had full-time phys ed, it'd be hard to walk away from that. I could always have done my master's of education at night, in the summers, part-time. And Jerry said, you've got it. I said, seriously? He said, yeah. There was another teacher named John. I'll take his phys eds away, give him to you. You'll be full-time. Now, you have to remember, I coached the volleyball team, the basketball team, track and field team. I ran intramurals, right? I was at school early. Kids would come to school.
You always threw yourself into it then. You're all in.
100%.
All in for that.
I don't know any other way, right?
Yeah.
And you know that, I think, from our brief interaction.
Yeah.
So, end of the day, Jerry said, yeah, you'll be full-time phys ed. So now I had a conundrum. I had a decision to make. Wow, this is real. Like, I could be a phys ed teacher, do it this way.
That's what you wanted.
Go back, do my mam ed. Any event, the other phys ed teacher who didn't coach anything, who the kids didn't like, went to the OSSTF, the union, hired a lawyer, saying that it was discrimination. He was of a different ethnic background, hired a personal lawyer, and Jerry Prince comes down to me 3 days later, says, Rob, I got 2 years to retirement. This guy's making my life miserable. He's got the union lawyer down my throat. He's got a private lawyer telling him he's going to sue me. He said, I don't need this aggravation. So you're welcome to come back teaching same as you have this year, half phys ed and half math. I'm 23 now. I started at 22 teaching, turned 23. And I said, hold on a second, Jerry, let me get this clear. The kids want me to be a phys ed teacher. You, the principal, wants me to be a phys ed teacher. The phys ed head wants me to be a phys ed teacher. I want to be a phys ed teacher. The only person in this equation not wanting to be a phys ed teacher is the lowest common denominator, the guy not doing the job, and he's going to rule the day. And Jerry said, Rob, it's one of the drawbacks of education. You've got that about right. Wow. I said, Jerry, thank you. You've just taught me a great lesson. Wow. And it's better that I learn it now than 10 years from now in my career.
Wow.
And
what a gift.
On a dime, I pivoted. And instead of going back to Brock University to do a master's of education, I went back and did a 2-year graduate business degree. They call it a special B10. It's not an MBA. You had to have an undergraduate degree, and you took all business courses for 2 years. And
what a man, that is, I love that, because so many people sit and pontificate over a major life decision where they end up knowing, you see it clear as day what's going to happen 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and you made a shift. Just like that. Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to be a martyr. I didn't want to be that guy that, say, oh, I could do this, but the rules, no. You know what? And I'm black and white. Sometimes your greatest strengths are your greatest weaknesses, but I am black and white. So the decision was made.
So when you started building your business, you got into finances, and I know like you're all in. You're at school at 7:30. You go all in, right? Tell me about what it's like building your business, right? Because you have a lot of different avenues that you can build a financial planning business. Tell me about that when you started building.
Yeah, so for me, and this is where, nothing in life is wasted, right? Like we build on our experiences. We stack them one on top of each other. So for me, what I did, in Hamilton, where I grew up, didn't grow up in wealth, didn't have all kinds of moneyed friends I could tap on the shoulder and say, hey, let's do some business. Not an extended group of moneyed relatives out there. So, I leaned on my educational background and my teaching skills. And what I did was I printed 5,000 flyers, and I do a seminar in the East Mountain, and I do a seminar in the West Mountain. Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. I get, big bang for my buck on that one flyer I would mail out. And I'd be, Monday and Wednesday at the West Mountain location, Tuesday and Thursday at 7 o'clock. And people would come out. And what happens in the financial services industry, people love charts and graphs, and quite frankly, they want to confuse people, right? They want to confuse them. They want to overwhelm them. So then they're the person with all the expertise. And, I'm going to drown you, and now I'm going to save you. That wasn't my idea. My idea was to educate people. So have a seminar. I'd get 30, 40 people would come out, and I would very simply take them through what I have developed and refined over 35 years, the 4-stage process to financial success that I taught you to use in your business. And I would just simply say, hey, no PowerPoint, no charts and graphs. We're here to have a discussion tonight. Going to find out what your questions and concerns are about your money. Look at your current position. My role is to suggest various alternatives to you. Develop and outline the pros and cons of each, and then together select the best option for you. And then on an ongoing basis, experience has taught me your current position is going to change and your questions and concerns are going to change. I said, so that's my model. That's what I do with people every single day. You've come out tonight. This is your time. What questions and concerns do you have? And then I would close my mouth. And it's tough. You're in a public forum, 40 strangers come together. Nobody says anything. So, the knee jerk is for me to answer my own question, but now it's my question, and they haven't bought in. So I would look at someone and say, come on, sir, it's just, snowy out tonight. It's cold. Why did you leave the comfort of your home and come here tonight? And he would give me something. I want to save tax. I want a better return. I want to plan for my retirement. Whatever he would say, I would write on a whiteboard. And then it would pick up steam, and I'd have a whiteboard full of questions. I'd have a second whiteboard that I would then answer every question. There wasn't a canned presentation. At the end of the seminar, I would say, listen, you've come out tonight. I thank you for coming out. You've seen my philosophies. You've seen how I do business. Now's the time to decide if you want to make it personal. If you want to get together and we can talk specifically about your own situation. And if you want to do that, fill out this sheet I've handed out, tick off yes, and write your phone number down. If you don't want to do it, I said crumple it up and leave. And if you're unsure, write your number down and write unsure. That just means we have to have a further conversation, either move you to a yes, I'm a guy for you to work with, or no, I'm a guy that you shouldn't work with. And either answer is fine.
So you know what, like when I look at, because I love the 4 stages to success. I love the idea of educating people. I think it works in any business, like 100%. Whether it's mortgages, real estate. And I think we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, where it's almost the idea of adding value first before collecting compensation for something. You got to add the value first. Now, for people that think that doesn't work today, like, has your sales process changed from, we're talking 80s, 90s, you know what I mean, to 2010, 2020? Does the process hold weight not. Today?
What I like to say, Brian, is, there are no new fundamentals, right? So, that fundamental of educating people and not selling them. My next book I'm working on is Confessions of a Financial Advisor. All the little things I've learned, as you say, dealing with people and how if I confess them out there, maybe people can find value in that, and that can help them as they try and find a financial advisor that works for them. And one of my confessions is people love to be educated. They hate to be sold. Right? We all hate to be sold, right?
Right.
And we're smart enough to know when it's happening to us, right?
Yeah.
So why bother is my thing. Let's just cut to whatever service or product you're providing, educate first, and the sale will look after itself.
And fundamentally, education builds trust, right? And then you're going to work with people that trust you and you trust them. And then it's not about price. It's not about losing clients at the end. It's about, hey, listen, Rob delivered value. I trust what he's saying. So we're on board, right?
Absolutely.
So let me ask, because you're such a humble guy, and I know we won't talk too much about your situation, but I do want to say, like, you built an empire in your own right, I believe, right? So you built other financial planners. You've used your tools and you've used things to help other financial planners grow their business too, and you've grown your own business, right? What would you say to people that want to grow sales teams versus growing their own business? Yeah,
and I think that's a good one. When you're a financial advisor, a mortgage professional, I think we all go through the decision. Do we want a practice as a sole proprietor, or do we want to build a team?
Yeah.
And at the kind of the micro level, Rob McCrae just wanted to be a financial advisor and deal with his clients. So to this day, 35 years later, I have 216 families that I work very tightly and deeply with. So that's how someone generates their income, right?
Yeah.
And then how do you build your wealth would be something different, would be how do you create equity? And that's where you start talking about getting larger. So I was very fortunate that on a personal level, I wanted to keep it small and tight, but then I was fortunate enough, and I went searching, quite frankly. I started my career at Investors Group for 2 years, where I was a sales agent. And then literally on my 2-year anniversary, I left there and I joined a firm, Equion Securities, which was a small partnership. And then Equion Securities merged with a company, Loring Ward Investment Counsel, that I was a founding shareholder of, that you make reference to. And that company became the largest independent financial advisory firm in the country. So for me, I was able to get that large-scale business growth by being a partner. And if I'm 100% honest, you call it humility, I call it honesty, Brian. I hitched my wagon to guys that were probably smarter than me and better at what they do than me. But I think the lesson from that is partnerships can create great things, right? You don't have to do it yourself. So I did it myself locally, but then created partnerships to form this company. In 1996 is when the paperwork all got done. There were 30 some of us that were active shareholders. We went on and acquired 15 companies, and to this day there's 1,000 advisors at Asante. We went public in 1998. We were taken out or acquired by CI Financial in 2003. So yeah, it's been a great journey. Fabulous journey.
You say you hitched your wagon, but I think that requires a certain character to allow the wagon to be hitched. But it also, and it also requires due diligence, right? Because as you say, you're the type of guy that's all in. I've seen people make decisions on a hope and a heartbeat. You don't just hit your wagon on a hope and a heartbeat. You probably read a few documents, did a research, like you said, you were searching, right? Yes. And I think just sometimes, like I appreciate the humility there, but like there's work that 100%. Gets involved with finding, in my opinion, with finding that right partner. Like it's like I gotta. And I know you do your research, so you're looking and saying, okay, this is the right wagon to hitch to.
Absolutely. No, for sure. It was a very thoughtful, going from Investors Group, which was the granddaddy of the industry. You went there because they had the best sales training program. I was a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Like I had to learn. So once I learned that, but again, they weren't going to give me the equity opportunity as a business owner. So yes, I definitely went to a small, what we call boutique firm, and the people involved, there were really what drew me. They pre-existed me. I think they'd started in 87 and I joined them in 93. And then, as I say, we took this quantum leap with a bunch of the partners in 95, 96.
I like that. It's something I've always subscribed to as I'd rather have a little of a lot than a lot of a little.
100%.
Right? And I think that's what you got out of it too, right?
That's exactly the case.
So let's talk money for a little bit, because everybody is trying to make more money right now. Groceries are more expensive. Gas is more expensive. People feel squeezed today, especially, depending on the algorithm that you're in on social media. There's a lot of bad news, right? So I think what is probably the best advice you can give someone now? I know you have your 4-step process, but if there was any sort of financial advice you give to people struggling today, what would that financial advice be?
The first thing I would say is find the right financial advisor for you, right? It's not about the financial advisor. It's not about the market conditions. It's about finding the right advisor that's going to listen to you and develop a plan for you, right? In good times, bad times, uncertain times, you need a plan that you stick to, right? So that would really be my, and it's not a shameless plug. I have a mature practice, right? But there's the right advisor out there for you. So you've got to do your homework and go and find the advisor that's going to listen to you and then craft a plan inside this crazy world. Like, I get it, Brian. I have a 29-year-old, a 28-year-old, and a 26-year-old at home. Well, they're not all at home anymore. Actually, I just lost one, so I'm down to only one at home now.
Yeah.
But, in this world with real estate prices and the cost of everything, they're trying to get going, and so I live at home every day with the 3 of the most important people in my life, my children, in terms of trying to help them get going, and as I say to them, listen, that's all noise. That's a distraction. You've got to develop your plan for you that works for you. So that would be my answer.
I like that. And I had someone the other day ask me, and I'm going to pose the question to you, and I think I know the answer, but I want to pose it to you because, and you probably get this just being in your space. Someone asked me, Brian, I got $50,000, got inherited $50,000, right? And this is young couple, late 20s. They bought a home a couple years ago. Probably not at the most ideal time to buy a home. They still have equity there, no savings, need to do some renovations, and they say, what do I do with my $50,000? And I think a question I get asked a lot is pay off debt or invest. When you end up having that, it's not like a game-changing amount of money, but it is definitely a good amount of money for someone. What would your advice be in those situations?
Well, you know what? Good question. And those are the kinds of things I deal with every day, right? But I'm going to take it right back to what I just said. They need to have a plan.
I knew it.
Right?
Yeah.
So if they have a plan, then that $50,000 gets integrated into the plan that they have. It's not a one-off, right? And again, so as a professional, what I would say is, you can take $50,000, and I'm a big fan of paying debt down, right? Like, I'm old school. Leverage, I've seen, interest rates, my second mortgage, my first mortgage, I assumed at 10.75%. And then my wife and I quickly moved 18 months later and added to that mortgage at 14.75. So I've seen interest rates, right now the market's in upheaval because we're going from rates that were less than 2 to 4. Right? So,
It's funny to put that in perspective because what you just said was a 4-point increase. This is doubled, but only a 2-point increase. Right. Yeah. Very.
And so,
perspective.
The $100,000 mortgage at 14%, what's your monthly payment, Brian, versus your $700,000 mortgage at 2%. Right. Yeah. Hence why we've got, levels of leverage that we have. But so you can pay down that debt. Or maybe, you top up RSPs depending on what your income is, and then the government returns to you 30 or 40%. Take that 30 or 40, pay down the debt with that, but then have an asset growing for you. So that's the kind of planning that I'm talking about versus a one tactic decision. What's the overall strategy?
I love that. And I think it's important. You circled back to it. And I think for people, understand when you're interviewing a financial planner, and I think if I had $50,000 to my name, you might not be my financial planner because you have a more mature book, right? And I think what you're saying is you need to find a financial planner that's going to and I'm not saying you wouldn't give them the time of day, but you got to work with someone that's going to work with you as well too, right? Someone who deals with $5 million portfolios likely is not going to give you the same advice or time of day that if you just have $50,000 to invest. So you need to find someone. And I guess to your point, what would you look for with a good financial planner? Because if I'm starting out and I don't have a lot of money, some of these high-end financial planners might not want to deal with me. Right. So what should I look for?
Yeah, like in my book, I have a checklist. So I think you want to look at their education, right? And again, is that the most important thing? No, I have partners of mine at Asante going way back. One was a former PhD in education, right? I've had people with arts degrees that are fabulous financial planners. I've had engineers that are fabulous financial planners. So there's all different gamuts, but I think some level of education shows curiosity. It shows, discipline, dedication to finish a diploma, to finish a degree. So I just think that education is important in that regard. You want to look at what licenses they hold. The licenses you hold, whether it be simply to deal in mutual funds, the ability to deal in individual stocks, the ability to deal in life and disability insurance, will depend on whether they're a comprehensive planner or they can only deal in certain products. I would look at the company they work for. Are they a captive sales person that only deals in a company's products versus can they broker all products in the industry? I would ask them what their ideal client is or how do they decide on their clients. To your point, Brian, I'm sitting here listening to you. I've never had an asset threshold. Cool. I think, again, people to feel a sense of self-importance, financial advisors would set those $1 million minimums because, I'm successful. I only help people like this. There's lots of millionaires that I would have no interest in helping, right? And I've had meetings with them and I've declined to have them as my clients. What I want is a good person. I want a good person that's trying to get better and values my advice, right? That's what I look for. And,
it's you hammered on something right there because I see this in the mortgage business. I see it in the real estate business. I see it in so many different ones where too often we're chasing the yes to any client instead of actually being true to the value that we can add and picking the right clients, right? And what you're saying there, you've built a great book of business on choosing the right clients that are right for you. And it's and what that comes with, which a lot of people forget, is that comes with saying no. Right. To say no to the millionaire client. Was that hard the first time you did it, or was that?
For sure. Of course it was. Yeah. And you always second guess. But again, saying yes to enough right clients, when you're in it as long as I've been in it, right, then you have an authentic client base that supports you and you support them, and it's something. It's a great thing, right?
Good for you. I want to add, because you know what? Obviously, we have Mission 35. We got a great mortgage brokerage here. We talk to people about buying houses all the time. So tell me, what is your advice right now for buying real estate? Is it a good investment, bad investment, or how does that fall into the portfolio?
Real estate's an asset class, right? So, an investment guy, there's cash, there's bonds, and there's stocks. And there is real estate, right? Okay. Investment out there, REITs, real estate investment trust. So what I would say is, there's a patchwork quilt, which each asset class has a color. It's on an 8x11 sheet. I can go back to the beginning of time and we could look at Canadian stocks, we can look at US stocks, we can look at international stocks, we can look at Canadian bonds, we can look at global bonds, we can look at cash, we can look at real estate, and we can assign a color to all of those. And there will be a random distribution as though what was the top performing asset class this year and what was the worst performing asset class. And if we looked at that, real estate would have years where it's the top performing asset class and would have years where it's the worst performing asset class, as would US stock, Canadian stock, international stock. So what I would say is it's part of an overall strategic asset allocation. Right? It's not good, it's not bad, it's an asset class. So we have to implement it into our planning. What I would say is by its nature and the use of leverage, real estate becomes, overly concentrated in people's portfolios simply by buying their home. Right? So, they spend $1 million or $700,000 and they have $50,000 to invest, as you've mentioned. Well, we got $1 million here and we've got $50,000 here. So where I caution people, and again, you and I have had these discussions, is that we never want to have too much of our money in one asset class, because if that asset class doesn't perform, we can be in trouble over an extended period of time.
I love that. That's great advice over the test of time. And I love how you said, like, I have my bias. I love real estate investment, but I've since diversified different asset classes as well too. Just a little bit of Bitcoin right now. Don't know how you feel about that. We'll leave that one for another day.
Sure. Yeah. Next podcast.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, no, I like that as well too. And it's a great way to look at diversity, right? Because if you have, there are so many people with that $1 million house. And you said something to me that I wrote on my whiteboard and I looked at it every single day. And I remind people of this as well too. And it was that, and this was when the market has been changing over the past 3-5 years. We've seen a lot of ups and downs, especially in real estate. And you said, no one ever went bankrupt because of the market. They only went bankrupt because of over leverage.
That's right.
And right. I think that's very powerful.
And I'm just trying to think, we're in your building here. Brian and I have offices 2 blocks apart. So in the middle of us, there's a new condo project.
I know the one. Yeah.
616 units. So now they're open to view the models. It's beside the YMCA, which I go to once, sometimes twice a day. So I went in to see a model. Spectacular.
They're beautiful.
Brian.
I've been in there.
Have you been in?
Yeah, they're
up to the
beautiful.
30th floor.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who wants to bang on the hammer should go stand up there. You see the water, you see the Niagara Escarpment.
It is gorgeous.
Right,
yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah. The meeting rooms, the party rooms, the family rooms, the cardio room, this thing is spectacular.
The gym is better than the Y.
Whole floor.
It's beautiful.
100%.
Yeah,
okay,
it is gorgeous. Yeah.
The young
We're in
fella,
agreement.
young fella takes me around and he shows me a unit, and I say to him, "What did this unit sell for?" And pre-sale, and 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And he said, "Well, I sold this unit for $675,000." And I said, "What can I buy it for today?" $400,000.
Mm-hmm.
So someone over leveraged into that. There might be a problem here.
Correct. Yeah.
And so again, to you, I'm glad you remembered that I said that. That piece of real estate 30 years from now, it's a beautiful building. It's going to be okay.
It will be. Yeah, I agree.
The problem is going to be the person that bought with leverage at 675. They try and close that 3-4 months from now. The bank does a valuation of 400. Brian, you know better than I what's going to happen there, but I think I have a little bit of an inkling that there could be trouble there.
There could be. I think it comes down to, when you have a financial planner, I think you can apply this to everything in your because you should be running your home purchase by your financial planner.
100%.
So in that case there, and I know there's people that are, and I've seen this in multiple condo projects where, let's say, just to go a little bit deeper on that, where a bank will have a blanket appraisal, they'll appraise it purchase price of $675, right? And then if you didn't over leverage, and I said I can afford my payments, and you've got the pre-approval in place, you will be underwater, right? You'll be underwater, but for how long, right? So, and that's remains to be seen, right?
Well, whether it remains to be seen, but as long as you can hold through the period,
correct,
you'll be okay.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of people that did that on a hope and a prayer, didn't talk to a financial planner, just bought thinking everything goes up. That's the problem, right? You really need to slow down, I think. I love your advice on that and on the plan, because I subscribe to a phrase all the time. It's slow down to speed up. And it's like, slow down, check with a trusted professional who's got education and years of time on their hands to see whether or not it's a good decision or a bad decision.
Yeah, 100%.
So now, Rob, tell me about, like, we had you in coaching. We had you coaching the team. I want to talk about your frameworks because, like, you know, you're a brilliant mind when it comes down to finances, but also when it comes down to, you know, frameworks. I find you very, not just inspiring, but more so tactical, right? Because I think a lot of people are all fluff, no
Show,
substance.
no go.
Yeah, all show, no go.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you actually had great tactics, right? And they come through life experience, right? So one of them that resonates with me because I get a text message from you every Friday morning, and it's always a little bit different, and I love it so much. I especially love the ones when you're driving into the parking lot.
Yeah, when I'm first in there, right?
And nobody's there, right?
Yeah.
But it is this, and it resonates with me, and it rings in my head, and it's champions create distance on Fridays.
Right. Isn't that
Talk
great?
about that. It's so true.
So you know, I believe in coaching, right?
Yeah.
So I learned that from a guy by the name of Ben Newman, right? You know, and what I did was I expanded on that to create winning weekends. So champions create distance on Fridays. It's just, you know, when others are showing up late, when others are taking a long lunch, as we do on Fridays, when others are leaving early, or others are maybe plain just not showing up at all. You show up on Friday and you get the work done like you do on every other day. And by getting that work done, you're creating distance between everybody else, right? Simple concept, but again, in the independent world of, you know, providing services of financial advisory, mortgage, you know, you don't have a boss. You don't have to be at the desk, right? So it's just a reminder, you know, do the work every single day, especially on Fridays when, again, the whole idea of self-employment is flexibility and not having a boss. And then what we do is we fake ourselves out and we don't go to work, right? We give ourselves that latitude. And again, you know, you don't do it on some Fridays. You just don't do it on the Fridays you feel like it. You don't do it on the Fridays that it's convenient. You do it on every Friday.
Right.
And those small decisions will have a huge impact. And then, you know, it's funny, organizational Sundays, this is where I commend you, you know, you shoot me, you know, as we're getting ready for this week, you know, on Sunday, you shot me something, right? So it shows me you're getting ready on Sunday and you say, slow down to speed up. I mean, in a fast-paced world where, you know, cell phones and computers and, you know, social media, like people just don't get a chance to rest, right?
Yeah.
So I think Sundays for me is a time where I reflect back on the past week. You know, I look at what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, and then ask myself, more importantly, why? And if something hasn't gone well, I don't want to repeat that week after week. I want to break out of that. So if it's something that's happening regularly and I can identify the why, then I can make the change, right? On the other hand, I always believe in playing to your strengths. If something's going well, by reflecting on that, I'm just reinforcing that, right? And I continue to expand or accentuate on that to improve my success. So, you know, my value proposition is if you execute winning weekends, champions create distance on Friday, and organizational Sundays, the rest of the week will look after itself. And that's been my experience.
You know what? I share that experience deeply, and it moved me because sometimes you do things, but you don't know why they do them. But when you put it into context, it creates massive distance. I've seen people in our industry, you know, they close a big deal on Friday, big mortgage closing, big real estate transaction closing, big client closing. What are they doing? They're celebrating.
Take the rest of the day off. Go for a beer. Let's beat it. Let's get out of here.
And then the thing is, I always hear, you know, I deserve it, or I earned it, or I deserve it. It's like, hey, I'm not saying you don't. Good for you, right? But imagine taking that energy, and I got this for you too. Imagine taking that energy and bringing it forward into the next call. Like I just closed something. Now I'm going to bring it forward again and create that momentum.
So that's concept number 3 that I have taught you, and then it's related to this. I call it process versus outcome, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we need to all develop processes and execute those processes. Again, it's not for me to tell you what your process is. You need to figure that out. Sure, I can ask some questions and help you along in that journey, but once you figure out your process, you need to execute your process. day after day, in good and bad times. And don't let the outcome determine your actions, as you just said. So the other side of that coin is, I closed the biggest deal of my life, so I deserve to take the time off. You're living to the outcome of closing the biggest deal. The flip of it is, and I'm sure you've had these, maybe when you were younger, Brian, 19 years ago, starting in this business, and you had a massive mortgage, going to pay you a huge commission, your biggest ever. And at the 11th hour, it went sideways, and you didn't get the deal.
Oh, yeah.
So now you pout, geez, you quit, and you leave the office. You go have a beer with your buddies. You just go home. You and I, we like to work out. You go for a run and you blow it off, which is okay. I like that strategy. But the point is, don't live to the outcome. Whether you got the biggest deal or lost the biggest deal, do the work. It should be irrelevant. You can't control those outcomes in some cases. So you can control the process. So let's focus on the controllables, the process, not the outcome. If we focus on the process, the controllables, I'm willing to bet you'll be happy with the outcomes en masse.
I agree. And you know what, the process too is, it kind of takes care of itself after some time, right? Because you get into the groove, you get into the habit. Like, I am at the office every day at 8:15. It's just my process, whether that's early or late for certain people, but I'm always here at 8:15. I'm always up at 5 a.m. I'm always doing my workout in the morning, even when I don't want. Like today, we had our awards last night. I was super tired this morning. I did a crappy workout. Like, it just wasn't my best, right?
But I guess what? You did it.
But I still did it.
You did
right?
it.
Still did it. Still did one, right?
Let me ask you a question. How many, you had your awards night for Mission 35. How many mortgage brokers are part of Mission 35, Brian?
We've got about 60 right now.
60. Yeah. How many of those 60 are at the office at 8:15 every day?
I'd like to hope a couple of them, but definitely I think our top performers, the ones that got the top awards last night, they would be.
Right? It's not an accident.
I know.
It's not an accident. And I'm not asking you to put, I don't want your people to listen to this.
No, but it's true. Success has a recipe.
100%.
Right? The top performers, the ones that receive the top awards, they are working 8:50. They have success. They are doing those things.
They got a process. They execute daily. They're disciplined.
Yeah.
Again, it's not earth shattering. Right?
Yeah.
It's not some magic formula. There is no quick fix. There is no magic bullet. There is no secret. So many people, again, in an Instagram world, they're looking for the secret. Well, the secret is there is no secret. And the sooner you accept that and live by a belief of that, the better you're going to be.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? And sometimes it sucks. Like, it
100%.
sucks. Like, no one ends up saying, this is the worst workout, the worst day that I didn't want to get up when I wanted to stay in bed. But it does eventually get, because you've done it for years, it becomes easier. If you've only done it for days, it's hard. But then when you do it for weeks and months and years, it's just natural.
I get to my office at about 6:20 every day. And Monday morning was cold, was bitter. Over to the YMCA. So I get to my office, get things organized. 7:20, I leave my office and I go jump in the pool and swim 1,000 yards.
Love it.
In minus 30-degree weather. It's not fun, right? But I get out of that pool. My mind is clear. I'm stretched out, and I've won the day. I've been to my office, an hour of uninterrupted work. I've gotten a workout in, and now I get back to the office. My daughter's working with me at the office. The other girls come in, the other advisor. People start showing up, right?
You said something there, like when it comes down to, because it's funny, I was in a conference in California about a year ago, and they said the number one advantage in business today, the number one advantage is health, being healthy. You have more energy than most people half our age.
Yeah.
And because of what you just said there, you swim 1,000 yards, 1,000 or meters or what yards?
It's an old Y. It's a yards pool. That's
okay.
why.
But you're doing that every morning, right? Like Monday, Tuesday.
3 mornings a week.
3 mornings a week.
Right.
Like, man, some people don't do that in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and Mondays, I go back and do a run every Monday at lunch. Unfortunately, at 61, I'm down to 1 run a week. I used to run like 3 days a week, play basketball 2 days a week, but
at 60, good for you. I'm telling you, that is, you know what? Success leaves clues. Those are the clues, right? There's another one I want to talk about, which I really love when you presented to our team, and which we got to have you back again doing that because I loved it. Such great feedback. The burn. People always, I've never heard it called that before, but I know I had mine. But like, I want you to share like what that is for you.
Yeah. So like, like everybody talks about why and purpose.
Yeah.
And in your book, you talk about you like fast cars.
Yeah. Dude.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people say, what's your why, Brian Hogben? Well, I wanted to get to work and I always wanted a sleek Mercedes, right? Well, that's great. But then you get that sleek Mercedes and you've got it. So what's next? Right? And you can only fill your life with so many things, right?
True.
So it has to be deeper than that. So the idea of the burn it's what ignites your why and purpose, right? And so, you asked me what mine is. So, again, I thought of myself, and I've always been this, some people call me uptight kind of guy, overly organized, black and white. But I was a hockey player, like all good Canadian kids, grew up playing minor hockey. I got hit by a car Labor Day weekend when I was going into grade 7, and had a cast on my leg until December. It was a compound fracture. It had to be reset, so I had to go to the fracture clinic just up the street at St. Joe's, and with a rubber mallet and wooden wedges, they'd hammer on my leg to move the bones back into place. They didn't put pins and screws in because I was a tall, gangly kid, and it was on the growth plate, and thankfully they didn't. Anyway, I came out of that cast in January. My spot on the hockey team was given up because, we've got to win now, and if the player can't play, we got to replace them. So I started playing grade 7 basketball in January is when the season started, and I limped around the court, and a new love was born. I absolutely fell in love with basketball. My coach, Ian Fraser, was a graduate of Michigan University, and the whole culture of his coaching versus what I had received in minor hockey, I was just attracted to it. I was behind in basketball. There was the Catholic Youth Organization has a league throughout Hamilton, and it's fabulous. It's like they were the Harlem Globetrotters and we were the Generals, whatever they're called.
They were just here, yeah.
And they'd make fun of us, but I played every day, and went on to star in my high school basketball team. Went on to be recruited and play at the university level. Was a conference all-star. This was before Canadians played in the NBA. The highest point to really get to was to be on the national team, and that was my internal goal. I always wanted to try and make the national team. And my third year at university, I was a conference all-star. We were a first place team, but within the team, we had some characters and with some conflict, and the season ended, and I'd had enough, Brian. I said, you know what, I got to get away, and so there was about a 6-week period where I didn't train, I didn't shoot the basketball, I didn't do anything. I was just kind of decompressing. First time in my life that I had done that. Then we had the athletic banquet. My coach says, hey, Rob, I haven't seen you around. I've got a letter for you that came. Come by my office tomorrow. I went by his office the next day. He hands me an envelope, and I immediately knew. It had a red backboard and basketball net on it, which was the logo for Basketball Canada. I opened the letter, and there's an invitation to try out for the national basketball team.
Wow.
Which was going to start 3 weeks hence. I hadn't worked out. I was out of shape, unprepared.
For 6 weeks. 7 weeks.
Yeah,
Wow.
I hadn't done anything, right? So I opted not to go to the tryout, with the idea that I, get an invitation next year and I'll go next year. That invitation never came. So here's the deal. I was unprepared at the most important moment in my life at that point. And Brian, that burned in my brain. I had no one to blame but myself. Yeah, I could have blamed the coach for not giving it to me earlier. I asked him, how long have you had this letter, coach? And could have blamed the other teammates that I felt were the problem on the team. But ultimately, it was my decision to step away and not do anything that left me unprepared for what I wanted, what I had strived for since I was in high school, right? So, my burn is to never not be prepared.
Right.
I'll come to this podcast today, and, last night I was reviewing things. This morning I was reviewing things. It's just how I'm built. I was nervous coming on here today, Brian. Do I appear nervous to you?
No, because preparation.
Right, but that's
alleviates
what it is,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Like, so So yeah, that would be, so really the idea is for everybody, the purpose in sharing that is you need to figure out what your burn is.
Yeah.
What is it that drives you? You know, and if you connect to that on a regular basis, probably daily, you'll wake up wanting to take on the world, right? And again, in good and bad times.
See, I love that because you're actually turning the pain into something for some forward momentum, right? So a lot of people bury the pain, bury the embarrassment, bury the problem, bury whatever happened, where it's like the problem is okay. It almost defines you in a way, and it almost makes you, it's like, listen, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah. And funnily enough, you know, I referenced Ben Newman earlier, and I'm a graduate of his coaching program. And, you know, he's the one that identified it as the burn. And, you know, and his is different, but he forced everybody. So again, for me, it was, okay, what is it that makes me the way I am? And, you know, so when I'm reflecting back, I'm thinking about, you know, my grandfather is a role model I've always had, was a lawyer and a judge. And you know, but I said, no, it's not that. And, you know, why am I the way? So I had to do a lot of soul searching and thinking to come back to, you know, remember that point in my life that kind of created that feeling that has stayed with me forever.
You know, some of the most successful people, especially even here on this podcast that I talk to, are the people just like you that end up saying they've taken the time to know themselves, right? Good and bad, taking the time. Because it, you know, really, I think good and bad is just the lens through which you see it through. It's not good or bad; it just is.
Yeah.
Right. It's whether you define it as good or bad. But all those people, these great, amazing people, have all taken that time, and it's not like, okay, I'm gonna take 5 minutes and figure my shit out. No, it's probably
right, unrealistic, right?
Yeah, it's unrealistic. Right. Like I've heard people say, yeah, I gotta figure stuff out this week. I'm like, what are you figuring out? Like you might, you know, but it takes time to do that, right?
Got to do a deep dive.
I love that. So listen, future projects. You've got an amazing portfolio. I know your daughter's working with you now, which is amazing. There's nothing I want more than, you know, Lila's 9 right now. I keep putting a little mortgage bug in her ear every day. So,
right.
So you work with her, great transition planning going on and great things there. Coaching, what do you plan on doing in the next 5 years? You know, what does that look like for you?
Keep doing more of the same, Brian. You know me well, so you know my frameworks. You know, I've always got these little formulas that I develop, and one is it's F plus G in brackets times S equals a great big huge X, and so for me that's, you know, I've identified as I reflect back and look at my life where I've been and where I'm going. You know, 0 to 20 was kind of fun.
Yeah.
That's the F. 20 to 40 was G, is grind. So you take, you know, you have fun in your life and you grind. You multiply that by some measure of success that you have, hopefully, as you come out of that period. That's 40 to 60. And for me, I mean, I hate it. I wish I could stop the clock, but I can't. But now I'm on the other side of 60. So that 60 to 80 to me is all about significance. You know, I mentioned, you know, I have a client base of 216 people that I work with. I'd like to share my, you know, everything I've learned and developed kind of beyond that. And hence, when, you know, I chatted with you a year ago or so, just trying to share and get beyond. So yeah, the next 5 years for me is kind of about significance. How can I spread what I've learned and developed to help others kind of go on their own journey and grow and develop?
Well, you know what, and just for anybody listening on there, where can people reach out to you? Because I love your humility with it. You don't advertise that you do this too much. As you say, you like to work in the shadows.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I can strongly say, you know, I'm a huge fan, huge advocate for what you do. Where would people reach out to you if they want to reach out to you?
Probably just, you know, my email address, rmcrae, MACRAE @asante.com, or the good old fashioned way, they could give me a call at 905-317-0825.
That's cool. Yeah. So anybody who is looking for that, I think you're amazing for that. So a couple questions here too, on AI. You know, because I know you're an old school kind of guy too. You know, AI, I hear this everywhere. I hear this in the business. AI is going to take over our jobs. AI is going to replace me. If I don't figure out AI now, I'm going to be left behind. I need an avatar. Like, there's so much conversation around it. What's your standpoint on it, and maybe how are you using it or not using it in your business?
Okay. Not yet.
Okay.
And here's the thing, I think, okay, so I think organizationally, at an organizational level for Asante, AI needs to be something and it needs to be searched. Let's come down to Rob McCrae on the ground in Hamilton, Ontario, running his financial advisory practice. Brian Hogman running his mortgage business. I haven't figured out the relevancy at the micro level for me. And Brian, you're going to love this because you love my concepts. I think a lot about it, right? And and what how am I going to use it? Should I use it? Shouldn't I use it? And where I'm at right now is I call it the competency trap. Okay, it's concept number 7. You haven't heard this one before. You're getting it live today.
All right, love it.
So I say the competency trap equals, right? It equals information or advice. So I think AI is great for information, right? So in your business, what's the 3-year mortgage rate? Ask ChatGPT and it's going to tell you, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a different question than, Brian, what kind of mortgage should I sign up for? Mm-hmm. Should I sign up for a variable or a fixed rate? Should I go 1 year or 5 year? See, now you're providing advice. Mm-hmm. If you're providing information, I think you're vulnerable to AI. If you're providing advice, I think AI won't touch you. So the shift to close the competency gap is to move from being a salesman to a trusted advisor, a word you used earlier in this podcast.
Yep.
So, people go to salesmen for information. They go to trusted advisors for advice, right? When you have conversations with clients about their hopes, their dreams, their fears, right? You're now changing the narrative. You're tapping into who they are.
Yeah.
And you're providing advice as a trusted advisor. I don't think AI can touch that. My humble opinion.
Yeah, I see a lot of truth to that because I see, from my side of it, I see a tremendous amount of fraud that I think it opens up the world to, which I think is incredibly scary. But I think that, with the amount of things it's able to replicate, I think it makes the belly-to-belly conversation almost a lot more relevant again. Someone to be able to talk to someone. In my humble opinion, we'll see how that plays out.
And if everybody's going that way, I find my greatest success is when I move away from the herd. I do something else.
It's true. One of my favorite quotes is, opportunity is arriving somewhere and not seeing anybody there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
So what is something, I like this one here. What is something that you have stopped explaining to people? Is there anything you stopped explaining and why?
Why I'm not retired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, really?
It's
kind of weird.
Do people say all the time, why are you not retired?
I'm in the retirement planning business. Right? I must not be very good at it if I'm still working at 61.
So funny. Yeah.
Right?
Totally. I didn't think about that.
So, listen.
I think you need to explain that one now. You got to explain it now. But.
Yeah, I'm never retired, right?
Right.
It's not happening, right? I'm just getting started at 60. As you say, my daughter's coming into the business, and I'm telling that to clients. She joined me this fall, and they said, so I guess you're going to retire, and she's going to take over. I said, no, you got it all wrong. I can work forever now because I've got her there.
Right.
Right? I mean, the pandemic, terrible, horrible, right? But one good thing, a couple of good things came out of it. And again, an old school guy, technology, right? I never used Microsoft Teams before the pandemic.
Yep.
I never used DocuSign before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? Those 2 instruments alone have freed a guy like me up in terms of where I can work from. I don't have to, though I am at the office and I choose to be there, I can sneak away a little bit early, get a DocuSign that I'm executing from a golf course as I'm sitting down after my workout, right? I mean.
So true. That on another note, it shattered a limiting belief I had, COVID. I didn't realize, because I used to think everybody had to come into the office to be productive. Obviously, that changed, and now one of my number one teammates, she moved to Kelowna.
Yeah,
and she still works with us, and she's amazing. And then she finishes work at 2:30 in the afternoon. She gets to explore the mountains, but she's an absolute superstar at what she does.
And
had I
pre-pandemic, that would have never happened.
well, my belief was in my own way, but now it's like, oh my God, had I lost that, it would have been such a tragedy, right?
It's funny, again, I'll take you back to the early 90s when I used to dial a rotary phone to call clients, and then, we moved to touch button, and before you used to have to listen to this, the 7 digits. You didn't dial 10 because you didn't dial the area code back then. But in any event, we'd move to a point where caller ID, people would see where you were calling from.
I remember that. Yeah.
The 2000s, if I called someone, say from my cottage phone, I'd get the dig. Oh, must be nice because this person's sitting at their desk somewhere. Exactly what you just said. Pandemic comes, people themselves, their children, their grandchildren have worked remotely, got the job done, they appreciate it. So nobody cares anymore where you are, to your point.
So
whether
true.
it's Kelowna, BC, or your den at home, doesn't matter. So that just allows someone like me to still, but I've always divided my home life and my work life, right? So I like to come to the office, as obviously you do.
Oh, I love it.
When I'm at home,
like
I'm with my family.
Well, I think that's process.
Well, there you go.
Right? Like,
It's
to your
ingrained
point,
in
it's
us.
ingrained because my process, like at home, family time,
100%.
workout time, daughter time, that's there, right? Going to the office, process, I'm work Brian, right? So it's, I want to touch on something too about your retirement because I feel the same way because, and you are a great retirement planner, by the way. So that's bullshit. But
Oh, thank you.
But I was watching the Blue Zones or one of those places. They're the people who live to 100, and I think it was Okinawa in Japan. I could be totally wrong, but I know there was a place where they end up saying what their word was for retirement, and it was non-existent.
Yeah,
They don't have a word for it
I know.
because retirement means you stop.
Well,
Right. So I thought that was interesting. And that was a place in the world where they have the highest amount of centennials or sentinels or
100%.
like the people that live over 100 years old. And they do not have a word for retirement because you just don't.
Well, they have purpose, right?
Yes.
There's that, retire and die, right?
Yeah.
And both figuratively and literally, right?
Yeah.
Like there is that, the medical evidence that will show that people that, they retire and then they quickly thereafter decease. But die from a standpoint of you're not learning, you're not developing, you're not growing. Like we're an organism, right? You're growing, expanding, or you're shrinking.
Yeah.
Like there's no in between.
Well, I like the idea. Someone told me about retirement was just retiring from one thing to something else.
Right.
Right, which I think is, I really, really like that. So 2 things before we wrap up, because we're just at the hour here. One book that you'd recommend for people to read.
The Richest Man in Babylon by a guy by George Clason, written in 1926. You've read it?
Yeah, long time ago. It's someone else suggested, so I have to reread it. It's on my list.
It's just financial parables, and it's funny, it's like, I sit here and share my concepts, and it's crazy. I listen to Darren Daly. He sends out a daily.
Is that Darren Hardy? Darren Daly?
Yeah, the Darren Daly by Darren Hardy. Right.
Yeah, right.
He sends it out each morning, sitting in his backyard in California, and he talked about the success trap. Well, I've been talking about the success trap. I didn't steal it from him. He didn't steal it from me, and I had a coach back in the early 2000s, his name Doug Carter, fabulous guy, lives in the most northeast part of California, Mount Shasta. He skis like 200 days a year. He lives in California. People can't get their head around that. He was the president of Robbins Research International, which is precursor to where Tony Robbins is now, back in the 90s. Doug's, what question? I just lost my train of thought. There's a 60-year-old moment.
Well, this was The Richest Man in Babylon.
Doug's Carter's comment was, there's nothing new. My hero when I was 25 years old starting in this business was David Chilton. The wealthy barber. I saw him speak. His whole thing was, save 10% of what you make. He simplifies everything, dumbs it down so it's consumable and understandable, and then I read The Richest Man in Babylon and he's talking about saving 10%. I'm not saying that David Chilton stole that from The Richest Man in Babylon.
No, but I think a lot of that stuff needs to be not regurgitated in today's standards. It's just different, right? Like it's different, but it's the same principles. Like
when
you
I went
say,
to basketball practice, we practice our fundamentals every day, right? You don't practice dribbling once and never do it again, right?
Right.
So it's okay to hear it a second time or a third time. Slow learners
agree.
like me, we maybe need it a fourth or a fifth time,
I need
right?
it 10 times. Repetition's the mother of skill. I got to hear it,
Yeah,
again and
100%.
again and again. Last one for you. Over your 60 years of success there, what is the number one skill that people can grow in order to become successful?
Can I change the words from skill to framework?
100%.
Yeah. So I think everybody needs to figure out a framework for them and where they're at in life. For me, it was the 4-step process to financial success that's allowed me to have a level of business success that I would have never dreamed possible. So I think, wherever you're at in life, figure out a framework, a process. Again, we've used that word a bunch of times today, and then execute it. For me, I've refined and tweaked that process over the years so that I think it's pretty special. So special that we adjusted it to the mortgage business, and you were allowed to use it for some great success. So figure it out, what your framework is for you, and then stay true to it. Again, but don't be afraid to refine it and grow it over time. But that becomes kind of your playbook for your success, right?
I like that. Rob, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you. So anybody who wants to reach out to Rob, you'll be able to see where he's at. But thanks for your time, man.
You're welcome,
awesome.
Brian.
Cheers.